Welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Jenny Kadaris and I'm here with Nick Ray from the Ethical Consumer Group.
Hey Jenny.
Okay, so we've talked about these issues that are relevant and the issues that the Consumer Guide has actually taken into account. I guess one of the main questions I have for you, are these issues still relevant? And are they things that we really should start to take into account? Not only in our shopping, but just in our everyday thinking. And are they examples of things that are really happening, or is this kind of an overstated issues?
Well, it can feel like an overstated issue, and it's not my problem being here in Australia, in the culture that we live in. But the reality is that we are all actually human beings and linked to each other in a global world now. And often linked through our purchases. So there are things that are going on at the other end of the process that we don't know about. But we've got a bit of a slogan which is not ours, but it's we own it, which is your dollar is your vote. Yeah. And who did you vote for today? And it's asking what is the impact of our dollar. And I suppose really our dollar makes a difference in so many ways. And we actually influence the outcome of the processes at the other end. So for example, buying regular chocolate, there's no transparency of where the cocoa comes from, and there's a whole lot of issues about child slavery in West Africa, where 80% of cocoa comes from. Because
for a lot of our viewers, and I guess people in general, would sit there and say, well, slavery, does that actually still exist? Does it actually still exist?
It does exist, and it exists largely because of some of the economic systems that are in place. And there's actually more slavery in the world today than there has ever been in history before, largely because we've got a huge population. But some of the choices of choosing a fair trade certified chocolate mean that we're actually paying the people at the other end a fair wage, and some of that transparency is in place. So simple choices you can make that have a huge impact. I'd also like to mention that it's not just about the impact at the other end, it's actually about who we are as people and how we consume and putting us back in touch with the things that give us life. So we've often lost that connection with the things that sustain us, especially our food.
Yeah, because I've also heard of examples, especially through World Vision, where they've actually had children in Ghana who basically were and are slave labourers, if you like, actually working up to 60, 80 and 100 hours a week at the age of 6 in their cocoa industries. And I guess if we as Australians found our 6-year-olds in those conditions, it would be on the news every day. It would be a major concern, and we would want to stamp that out as soon as possible. Why do we not feel the same about this when there's a child in Ghana going through those types of things?
And often we just don't know the facts about the things that we buy. And another issue with cocoa is that the pesticides, the chemicals that are sprayed on cocoa, have largely been banned in Western countries. So we do it in West Africa, we can't do it in Europe, America and Australia.
That's right.
Lots of issues. Encouraging people to take on one at a time.
Yeah, that's right, because you take on all of these issues, it seems very complex and seems overwhelming as well, right? I guess a lot of people do not have the time, they don't have the money to investigate these organisations to ensure that they're actually purchasing ethical products. So are there other outlets, other ways where we can get information apart from just this guide there?
There are lots of resources around in terms of more sustainable purchases outside of the supermarket. There's quite a few green directories around, like Green Pages Australia or the Green Directory. You can look them up on the web. Great resources. Another thing that people can do to find out more information is actually come on our shopping workshops in Melbourne. So we have monthly shopping workshops where we have a tour through the supermarket and we talk about some of the issues. We actually go on a shop and put some of the theory into practice, and we come back and have a meal after that with our purchases. So it's a bit of fun as well.
So why is it important for our viewers to, when they're shopping, whether it's for Christmas or whether it's actually for their grocery shopping. Why is it important for them to take these considerations into account?
We're at an interesting time in human history where we in Western countries are actually consuming about 2.5 planets worth of resources. So the reality is, without painting a horribly dark picture, but the reality is we cannot continue to live in the way that we presently live.
Yeah, that's right.
And therefore, and I suppose consumption, our way of our push to consume more, is actually critical in that eating up of the Earth's resources.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a responsibility, I think, we have to just start to address that, to move forward, and knowing that actually our purchase does make a difference. Because I think a lot of people kind of don't really make that connection.
Yeah. I guess the other important question, which I really would like to bring up before we close the segment, is the practical things that we as consumers can do to ensure that our purchases are ethical and are sustainable. What practical things, in your opinion, can we do that doesn't necessarily cost a lot, but we can also do and ensure that we are going on the right path in that respect? What other things can we do?
Well, I suppose one of the things is to ask that question of, do I actually need the purchase in itself? And sometimes we had one lady say how chocolate, you know, a lot of people would say it's not an essential, but for her, in terms of a comfort food, it was. And I'm not saying that you don't have chocolate, but perhaps it's viewed as a luxury food, less frequent, because of the implications of that.
Yeah, and also you've got a bag there as well, which is, I guess a lot of people are doing this in the supermarkets. They're purchasing bags instead of plastic, so that's obviously another one. How about op shopping? Op shopping,
great. Yep. So waste. We have this concept of a linear system of production where there's waste at the end, and that doesn't happen in nature.
Yeah.
It's a cyclic system. Waste is always used again, and so the way forward is very much to embrace reducing our waste and buying things that have recycled content is an important thing, like that toilet paper I mentioned before.
Yeah, and also I guess if you're interested in animal rights and animal issues, what can you do in that respect to ensure that there's, you know, different issues and different concerns we have? So it might be environment, so we'll look at purchasing or just using bags that we have from home, or recycling, or going through op shops to purchase our clothing. But in terms of animal cruelty issues, what can we do if that's one of our concerns?
Well, there are a few different areas for animal cruelty, and I suppose one of them is body care and animal testing. So Choose Cruelty Free is a resource that has a preferred products list where products aren't tested on animals. The big one with animals is meat, obviously, and if you're going to eat meat, you can choose a free-range alternative where the animals aren't factory farmed, because the common practice in Australia for production of eggs, production of chickens, production of pigs is factory farming in very small confined areas. In terms of meat eating generally, reducing our meat eating has a huge impact on the planet, more than many of the other things, because well, climate change and methane is a big issue with animals. There are lots of animal issues. A big one at the moment is palm oil, and that's to do with the loss of habitat in countries like Indonesia. Their rainforest is being destroyed for plantations of palm oil, and palm oil is actually found in 1 in 10 supermarket products. So you can find out a lot more by contacting us.
No problem. Look, there's so much more we could talk about, and a lot of this is food for thought, so do consider this. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming in today to talk about such an important issue. And that was Nat Chat for the week. Thanks very much for your viewing.